Sabah everybody and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to make a decision. We're going to find out which pixel is the right pixel for you. We're going to be covering a lot of pixels today. We're talking about the Pixel 4a 5G. That's obviously the biggest pixel that we have in 2020. Of course, we have the Pixel 5, the most powerful pixel of 2020. Last but not least, the most affordable pixel of all devices. And of course, ever since the beginning of Pixel devices launches, is the Pixel 4a. This guy is at 350 bucks and has a lot of bang for the buck. And of course, we're going to compare and see all of the new features that were released with the latest feature drop that Google pushed out that introduced some new features to Pixel devices, not only the current lineup, even previous generations. This is TK, let's check it out. Like and subscribe and make sure you hit that bell icon so that you're always notified to whenever we have new videos on the channel. Starting things off with, as far as the obvious things that we're looking at, the Pixel 4a 5G and the Pixel 5 are the higher end models of the two. Last year they released the Pixel 3a and the Pixel 3a XL, and both of those devices for the most part shared the similar basically optics. It was just generally a bigger device with obviously a bigger battery. This year we have slightly different configurations. The overall customizations or the setup that we have here as far as pricing isn't really in the right order because it goes from $350, $499 to $699 in the US. Now, this is also available in different markets, so your market may be different, but in general, the pricing starts this way. Cheapest, most budget-friendly, mid-range, bigger device and bigger display, all the way up to the premium side, which is the Pixel 5. The price point, again, depending on the market that you're in, is going to differ. The main thing that we want to say is that they're all running the same operating system. Android 11 has basically been pushed out to all three of them. There's no more betas that are needed. Before we switch over to the front, let's go ahead and talk about some of the things on the back that make them unique. The Pixel 4a has a single sensor. It's a 12.2 megapixel sensor, and obviously this is the same sensor that's carried over all three of them. They all three carry the same primary sensor with the standard focal length. Where the 4a 5G and the 5 carry differently is that they have two 16 megapixel sensors. So a dual sensor here and a dual sensor here, and the 16 megapixel is going to be your ultra-wide lens. So ultra-wide lens support is on the 4a as well, 5G as well as the 5. Fingerprint sensor is present on all of their backs, and the only difference with the Pixel 5 here is that we have wireless charging and reverse wireless charging that is supporting this battery that we have here. We have a 4,000 milliampere battery that's present on the Pixel 5, a 3,800 milliampere battery on the Pixel 4a 5G, and of course a 3140, which is roughly about 3,100 milliampere. So even though the sizes are slightly different, the experience is of course very unique. This battery is actually the biggest of all three, and it actually has about the same size dimension-wise as the Pixel 4a. So just keep that in mind. If you're looking for large battery, this is definitely going to be there, and I'll explain to you why the Pixel 5 needs that in a second. When we switch over to the front, we'll notice that the Pixel 4a has a 5.7-inch 1080p 60 Hz display. The Pixel 4a 5G goes up to 6.2 inches, so definitely a lot bigger. Of course, it's still 1080p at 60 frames per second. Lastly, the Pixel 5 has a much better improved display. It is a 6-inch display, slightly smaller, but the bezels are much thinner, and we have 90 Hz refresh rate, which makes this obviously a much more unique experience when it comes to the actual experience here. The cameras on the front are all the same, pretty much 8 megapixels on the front, 1080p video recording here. And one thing on the back sensors, we're able to record 4K 30 frames per second as the maximum here on the back sensors, while we have 4K 60 frames per second and cinematic modes built into the 4a 5G and the Pixel 5. The processor that's powering these devices is going to be the 765G for both the Pixel 5 and the 4a 5G, and that's where they're getting the 5G support. And lastly, we have the Pixel 4a running with the Snapdragon 730. Not that the experience is any different, it's just that this one is a 4G LTE supporting device, and these are 5G. As far as storage and configuration, 6 gigs of RAM with 128 gigs of internal storage, 6 gigs of RAM with 128 gigs of internal storage, and lastly here we have an 8 gig 128 experience when it comes down to the experience here. So definitely more of an improved experience when we get over to the Pixel 5. Both the 4a and the 4a 5G have a headphone jack, where we don't have a headphone jack here on the Pixel 5. Of course, all three devices support stereo speakers, so regardless if you go from the 350 or the 700, you're still going to be getting stereo speaker experience on all of these devices, which is definitely something very nice. Now, one of the things that will definitely be a benefit when you have a higher refresh rate on a device is the ability of scrolling through things much faster and things working much smoother for you. The overall experience is definitely noticeable when you have them in the hand. Unfortunately, this video is being rendered at 30 frames per second, so it's a little bit hard to see it through the lens. But definitely I appreciate having the faster refresh rate here on the actual overall the Pixel 5. The experience becomes just ever so nicer and of course much smoother. 5G compatibility is present on both. Of course, this will support your carrier's preferred preferences. Once you install a SIM card, the system automatically recognizes that and will download the appropriate applications. Updates obviously will all be on the same page since they're Pixels, and of course supported by Google with their update. And speaking of that update, I do want to talk about the last update that they just pushed out in early December, and it is essentially their latest feature drop that they put in here. Now, the feature drop itself, there was an article that was put over on XDA's website that actually has a very nice table that I want to share with you guys that actually covers the experience of what comes in and what's going to what. I can tell you pretty much that the 4a and the 5 are pretty much identical when it comes down to features. And of course, the Pixel 4a just has ever so slightly less features, about 3 less features that we're getting here. One of their new features is actually called Hold For Me. This is a service that you're able to enable within the settings tab. So you actually go into the dialer and go into settings, and you need to turn this on because by default it is not. And it is called Hold For Me. Essentially, you put yourself on hold as opposed to having to wait on hold with this. You actually allow the assistant or the basically the AI system here to wait on hold for you, and it will recognize when somebody picks up the call and it will notify you to be able to get that call. So it's something that is definitely very, very nice. And of course, those are one of the things that you obviously will appreciate having on your device. And this is coming to all 3 Pixels, all the way up to actually Pixel 3. So if you have a Pixel 3 with Android 11, the latest update should give you this nice option. Now, one of the other features that was also pushed out at the same time is called Extreme Battery Saver. And this is present under the battery saver option. You're able to basically use it, and once you turn it on, it will actually allow you to last a lot longer with the battery savings. So this is above and beyond what you normally get. And again, this one is coming to all Pixels all the way up to Pixel 3. So if you have the 3, 3A, 3XL, 4, 4A, even all the way up to the Pixel 5, you're definitely going to be covered with this new feature. The next feature that's also coming to a lot of Pixel devices is going to be the ability of sharing your screen in Duo in a group call. So essentially is allowing other people to see what's on your screen. If you want to share some pictures and so on that you've just taken, this is definitely going to be a really good experience. And of course, very much compatible with all the way to the Pixel 3, similar to the other 2 features that we talked about. The next couple of features are only coming into the Pixel 4a and the Pixel 5. First and foremost is adaptive sound. Now we'll find adaptive sound under the sound and vibration section, and you are able to turn this on, and this allows the actual device to recognize the ambient experience around you and of course amplify or lower the volume to give you a best experience of a music playback on your phone. So definitely something you do need to turn on. It is not on by default, and once you turn it on, you'll be able to get that benefit. And of course, again, mostly featured on the Pixel 4a 5G and the Pixel 5 since they both feature the 765G. The next feature is also exclusive to the 4a 5G and the 5, and that's the adaptive connectivity, which allows the device to jump between 5G and 4G and actually allows the device to have longer battery life. So if you're just scrolling Instagram and you're just checking your email, it's going to stick to 4G LTE. If you're starting to watch video or something that requires more data intensive usage, it'll jump over to 5G to give you the best experience. Again, built-in, automatically configured. You don't have to do anything for this feature, but it's definitely very nice. And the next feature that's coming out is actually very unique. This is only going back all the way to the Pixel 4, 4XL, 4a, of course 4a 5G, all the way down to basically the Pixel 5. And this is called adaptive charging, and it allows the actual system to charge the device at the most optimal rate. And this is a feature that you don't really need to do much. It's already in there and is configured. Lastly, we're going to talk about the last feature that's unique specifically to the 4a 5G and the 5, and that's the location improvement with GPS tracking, especially when you're walking on foot for basically maps and of course transit information. These are definitely going to be improved better with the 4a 5G and the Pixel 5 as they share again with the same processor and essentially the connectivity that they have. So that's a feature that's also coming in really nice, unfortunately only to the 4a 5G as well as the Pixel 5. The next feature is available on all 3 devices, and that's the ability of actually using the Now Playing feature that's built into Pixels to actually export the list of songs that you have as a playlist. So let's go ahead and select the one here, we'll select 2, and now we can actually export them as in a playlist directly into YouTube Music, and of course make a list out of them. You don't actually have to select everything on that, you can basically pick whichever ones that you'd like. So in case it ever happens where you hear a song, you didn't know what it was, and then you go on later and you're like, man, what was that song I was listening to? you can now actually not only find out which song it is, but you can also export it and make a playlist out of it. And again, this is available on all Pixel devices all the way up to Pixel 3. There's also an improvement with contextual translation that's coming into all Pixels all the way up to Pixel 3. But the next one that I want to talk to you guys about is actually some new improvements and new updates into the customizations that we get here. So within home screen settings, we can actually customize the different experiences. We also have the ability of changing basically the styles and wallpapers. So those are the new things that we're looking into here. So let's go ahead and do the same selection here. I'm going to go styles and wallpapers, and of course styles and wallpapers. It's available on all three. We have new designs and new wallpapers that are built in here, and of course home screen customizations that enable us to actually change the different looks as far as the lock screen and of course the home style. So we can jump into styles, and you actually have the ability of customizing not only the color of the actual option, the grid size, of course, depending on what you want. You want a bigger icon, smaller icons, but it's the styles that really get very nice. And of course you can add additional ones to customize your experience to your liking. And this is available on all three devices, the Pixel 4a, 4a 5G, and the Pixel 5. As far as the camera experience on all three of these devices, you're going to get a really good experience overall, much faster on the 765G for both the 4a 5G and of course the 5. Of course, also under video, we have a few additional modes here that we have the ability of doing. Again, 4K 60 frames per second here, 4K 60 frames per second, but we also have the ability of jumping into these modes. So under stabilization here, we have the ability of going to standard stabilization, locked, active, and of course cinematic up to 24 frames per second, again supported with the same optics, since for the most part these two devices share the same optics. Under video here, the maximum we're able to do is 4K 30 frames per second. There is no 60, although 1080p 60 is supported. And of course, under the actual stabilization, all we have is standard and cinematic. So the locked and active are pretty much just unique experiences to the 4a 5G and the Pixel 5. So the strength of the Pixel 4a obviously is it's a 5.7-inch display. It's a 1080p stereo speakers. We have a headphone jack, the fingerprint sensors on the back. The battery is a little bit on the smaller end, but the device is actually small, so it actually lasts you a lot longer, and you don't have the battery drain that 5G comes in with, as well as the higher refresh rate display. So 1080p, 60 frames per second, and the battery size that you get there is actually a really nice, well-rounded device for $350. So if you're looking for a device from Google or a Pixel from Google that's on a budget, the Pixel 4a is definitely going to answer that. And right now, 5G is not exactly that much faster than what 4G LTE is in most areas. So for the most part, you're really not missing out too much on the 5G. Although down the road, when 5G becomes a lot faster, obviously there's going to be some discrepancies there. But again, 4G LTE isn't going anywhere within the next few years, so you shouldn't have to worry about that. Switching it over to the Pixel 4a 5G. Now, the Pixel 4a 5G, in my opinion, is what the Pixel 4a XL should have been. The ability of having a larger display and a larger battery always gave us a better experience in the history, well, in the earlier generations. So the 4 and the 4XL, the 3A and the 3A XL. You always got the bigger display, and sometimes it's a better display. For the most part here, it's just a bigger display. It's a 6.2-inch display. The battery is 3,800 milliampere, again, a little bit bigger, actually quite a bit bigger than what we get with the Pixel 4a. But that's to compensate the fact that we have a 5G modem built in here, which will actually draw more power. So overall, if you're looking for a large format, or basically the largest Pixel available in 2020, that has most of the features that the Pixel 5 has, and I say most without with the few missing, so no IP rating there, I think the Pixel 4a 5G is definitely a great device. For $499, it's about $500. You're getting literally some of the best experiences that Google is going to be pushing out. There's no wireless charging, but again, you're not worried about that. One thing that it does have that the Pixel 5 doesn't have is a headphone jack. That's something that's also still unique. And with that being said, the Pixel 5 obviously rounds up all of the main features. So we get all of the features that we get with the 4a, with the 4a 5G, with the exception of the headphone jack, because the Pixel 5 does not have that. We have a 6-inch display, a 4,000 milliampere battery. We have wireless charging, reverse wireless charging. We obviously have an IP68 water and dust resistant here, so definitely a lot more benefits, a more feature-focused experience. The cameras, for the most part, again, the same as the 4a 5G, but again, smaller device, easier to do more of a one-handed experience. So if you're looking for the best of what Google has to offer for $699, I think this is a great deal, and sometimes they've had it in deals where it was a little bit less. I think the Pixel 5 has a very compelling story to say. It's really the best of what Google has to offer at the price point that I think most people are okay with, that accept a flagship from a company to come out with. It's not running the latest SoC, but the 765 is so powerful that you honestly will not notice the difference between it and a flagship device because of the implementation of Android on all of these devices being so close to stock. Basically, that's what a lot of people love about Android. It's the stock customized experience that Google offers us, of course, coupled with obviously the frequency of updates that we get from these devices. I hope this video kind of rounded up all of the things that you kind of, if you were, curious about the Pixel 5 or the Pixel 4a 5G or the Pixel 4a, this should be able to help you kind of make a decision which one of these three is the right phone for you. Like and subscribe, of course, as usual. Thank you very much to Google for allowing me to actually check out these devices and share with you guys my experience. But last but not least, make sure to like, subscribe, share that with all your friends, and I'll see you guys in the next video.